Hello everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hi, hello, welcome to the January vlog. I just got home from the New Year's party. I don't even know if I could call it a party. It was just like us chilling in our friend's house. It is 1:30 in the morning on January 1st, 2025. I'm looking a little rough. I think as my makeup, I put on mascara for the first time in like years at this point. Because I was like, why not try it? It's New Year's Eve. I wanted to pop in because we're going to do things a little differently this month with this video. I wanted to start 2025 with this vlog because I want to read intentionally this year. I always do. But just, I wanted to start this month off really strong. I wanted to start 2025 off really strong with what I'm reading and go forth and, like, you know, set the vibes and the reading of the year really well, you know? I wanted to kind of start that. So this is going to be the reading vlog for, I think, the month of January. I'm going to kind of keep, you know, updating and vibing and like giving you updates mostly about like my intentions with my reading and what I'm reading and if they're hitting those goals and that kind of thing. And then I'm also going to keep doing my weekend vlogs where you're going to get, you know, weekend vlogs are a thing. But I think January is going to be where I kind of set the tone of the year, because there's this thing with music. I'm going to get into it. If you didn't know, I'm a piano teacher part-time after school. I've been a piano teacher for like 13 years. One of the things that I have learned in my music career is that when you are starting a piece and when you hit those first few notes of your piece, you are setting the tone of the entire piece from here to the beginning. You are setting the expectation. You are giving the listener what you are going to deliver, essentially. You're giving them an introduction, you know? And I really like that idea, that analogy of like setting an intention right at the beginning of a song to go forth and like continue that building on it and whatever. So I'm taking that idea and I'm putting it into my reading. So what am I going to be reading this month? That's a great question. I am carrying over a couple reads from 2024. I am just at the beginning of The Principle of Moments by Esme Gikiyami Pearson, and this is definitely going to be continuing because this is a very diverse sci-fi fun time, and I'm doing a buddy read with Allie right now. I'm so distracted by the fact that my eye makeup is all over my eye on this eye. What the fuck? I apologize. I'm also still reading Mad Ship by Robin Hobb because I like to end and begin a year with a really epic fantasy, and this was my choice this year. So we're a little ways through, so I would like to continue this. But the vibes of what I want to do with my reading in 2025 are really, you know, continuing to read diversely, not only in BIPOC or like Black, Indigenous, and people of color authors, but also like in disability and in queerness and all that kind of stuff. So I would like to intentionally set out to set that up, I guess. So I would also like to set out to finish series well. You know, I would like to set out to actually finish things that I've started right from the beginning of the year. So here's the plan of attack. I have a bunch of books coming in different... Let me move you a little bit. I'm just set you on the stack of my favorite books of last year. I've taken pictures of it. I have a couple more books coming to me in the mail from orders from last year. And I'm going to be going to the store with my friend on Saturday, Sophia, for our annual little like bookstore date that we have. So I'm going to be buying maybe 1 or 2 books then. So I'm going to be starting off the year with 160 books on my unread TBR, roughly. I think I'm currently at 158 with this book order that's coming in. I know that it's going to be 158 when that's arrived. So I would like, in a perfect world, to get that number below 150. Just like very basic, just read like 10 books off of my physical TBR. Very straightforward. I would also like to make sure that at least 50% of my TBR is by an author of color. And also just, you know, finishing series, continuing series, that kind of a whole thing. This is my idea that I'm going to be working with. It'll make more sense as the video goes on, I think. But for sure, what I'm going to be reading this month are those 2 books that I mentioned. I would also really, really love to continue reading the Megan E. O'Keefe sci-fi trilogy. What is this called? The Devoured Worlds, this trilogy. I picked up book 2 from the library, so I'm really like to finally get to it. So I'm continuing series. I There's so many books that I want to read. I did start this indie book by Cassie McDonald, who is a friend of mine. So I'd love to finish this one as well. Darkness Calls Softly. We'll see what else I really get to. Like, I have a couple options like Dragon Rider by Taran Matharu. I did also just get this in the mail today, which is a win from an auction that went on recently for Gaza. And it is this beautiful special edition of A Prayer for Vengeance by Leanne Schwartz, which is a YA queer book, I believe. I could be very wrong. It's very shiny, it's very pretty, and there's a whole bunch of swag in it. So like maybe this as well. I don't know. I would also like to read Canadian books, and I do have a couple more Canadian authors on their way to me in that book order that I made. So that's another goal of mine this year, especially Canadian Indigenous authors. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm a little unsure. Maybe I'll finish. I should do that actually. I might be able to finish this duology this January. I think I had this on my idea for in my mind a couple months ago. I was like, oh, this feels like a very good January duology, which is Aidan Thomas's The Sunbearer Trials and the sequel that came out late last year, Celestial Monsters. So I think I'm gonna put that on my TBR as well to finish this duology, just like start the year off with a bang of finishing a series right away, because I have a goal of finishing 10 series. But yeah, that's kind of the plan of this video. I think we're gonna kind of see how I work my way through Mad Ship by Robin Hobb and these books that I've mentioned so far, but I'll keep you updated as to what I'm reading, how I'm feeling about it, how the challenge is going, and that kind of stuff. And at the end of the month, we're going to see where I'm at TBR wise, like TBR number wise, like how many books I have on my unread TBR. We're going to see what my stats are for all this diversity that I've been talking about that I want to include in my reading this year. And then we're going to kind of set expectations going forward. And we'll revisit, I think, maybe a quarter through the year. Like every quarter, we're going to kind of reevaluate. I think that's how I'm going to go about this year with my reading goals and stuff like that. But yeah, welcome to the vlog. Settle in. It's probably going to be a long one, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see what I end up reading this month. January is usually a very good reading month for me. So I think intentionally setting all these goals and moving forward to finish a couple, like a duology or maybe 2 duologies. I have other ones on my list that I could be finishing. Just kind of, you know, starting the year off right. Welcome to the vlog. Hello, friends. It is officially January 5th today. And I wanted to pop in because last night I ended up finishing my very first book, my very first read of the year. And so I have some reading updates for you. I have read every single day so far this year, which is honestly, like, it makes me feel really good. I ended up joining the Storygraph, like, January pages challenge that they run. And I now have incentive because apparently there's a prize. You, like, get entered into a prize if you do this challenge. I don't know. It tells me that every day that I log pages that they're like, you're still in the running for this prize. And I'm like, what is it? I don't know, but I'm excited. And so I have an incentive now to actually read every day, at least a little bit, like at least get a chapter in. So I started this year, day one, I didn't think I was actually reading anything, but then I did read some of Empire of Exiles that day. I like reread the chapters that I was doing because if you guys don't know, I have been part of the Writing About Dragons and Shit podcast book club for Empire of Exiles. And so I was reading those 3 chapters that we were going to cover in the episode that we filmed that day. So I was very, very happy to have actually read something that day. And it's my favorite book from the previous year. So I was like, I'm thriving. This is great. Rereading these 3 chapters. That's what I read the first day. And then I decided after like starting this video, I was stuck in decision paralysis for a good chunk of that first day. And like, I was like, okay, well, I'll pick something, I guess. But I got so in my head about it, about like wanting to pick a perfect read for the first pick of 2025 that I just didn't pick anything new to read that day. So on the second day, I started reading Taran Matharu's Dragon Rider. And this is what I finished last night. Guys, this was so good. I loved this. It was so, so good. I don't know if it's just me and the way that I was reading it and the fact that I wanted to love it so much, but okay. So this follows Jai, who is a orphaned kid who is the son of a like rebel leader, and Jai has basically been taken as a fancy hostage to the crown. He and his brothers have been taken. I fancy hostage? I don't know. Like Jai lives as a royal hostage in the Sabine court ever since his father Rohan, leader of the steppe folk, led a failed rebellion and was executed by the very emperor Jai now serves. So Jai is a personal caretaker for this ancient emperor guy, or ancient king. Like, he used to be the sovereign, but he now is like, he's grandpapa, so he's just like hanging out. So Jai literally is his caretaker. Like, he is wheeling this man around the castle. He bathes him, he clothes him, he chats with him, he does stuff for him. He's a manservant to this emperor. Jai is of the steppe folk, but he doesn't remember a lot about the steppe folk. He doesn't have the culture. He's been removed from it. All the other servants and whatever like hate him. He doesn't have any friends. He just has this old emperor guy that he like talks to. He barely gets to see his brothers, who are with the prince, and they're like, they entertain the prince essentially. But Jai is the one who got educated, because he is the one who writes and transcribes a lot of what the Leonid, this old king's library, from all these journals. He's been transcribing them into like actual work, and he reads them to the king, and the king reads, like, it's this whole thing. So Jai is there at this moment. Suddenly, like, this new princess is coming in, because the princess is wed to the terrible prince. Titus is the fucking worst. Like Joffrey on drugs, essentially. So Jai witnesses this princess coming, and with her, she brings dragons. Like, her dowry is a dragon to this thing. And Jai has never seen dragons before. These are really fun creatures. And in this world, there is a magic called soul binding. And so people can soul bind to various creatures. And of course, these different creatures have different levels of strength. So there are like the lower level ones, and then the griffins, and then this, and then this, and then dragons. And so soul binding is kind of like, you become paired with these creatures, and through that soul bind, you get like magic and stuff like that. So Jai witnesses this princess is here, but then there starts to be like a little bit of murmurings of something going on in the court, and things are happening, and then suddenly there's this like big massacre, and it like wipes out the entire royal family. Like, it's just this really terrible event. It's so brutal, and it's like the death of all these different people who came to this kingdom, came to the Sabine kingdom. All the Dansk people, who are the princess's people, are all just murdered. It's a breakout of all-out war at this point. Jai flees, and in fleeing, he ends up finding his way into this like body pit full of all these now massacred people, and they killed a dragon. A dragon was killed in this terrible thing that happened. And Jai ends up having to hide inside the dragon's body. It's disgusting. That scene, disgusting. He hides inside the dragon's body, and that's how he finds a dragon egg. And this dragon egg is warm, and he just like, he takes it with him, and he is on the run. And in this moment of him like freezing to death, he doesn't have any food, he can't go any further. He like tries to start a fire, but everything is wet around him. So he's just like holding on to this dragon egg, desperate for any life at all. And this baby dragon inside this egg soul binds with him, and like they both save each other, kind of a thing. And that moment of when Winter hatches from her egg, Jai and her like getting to know each other, that pure like joy of this tiny little innocent thing, it reminded me so much of Aragon, and like Aragon's connection with Saphira. It just made me so happy. And then it's kind of this like quest type situation where Jai ends up meeting up with the princess's handmaid, who fled on the back of the princess's dragon during this massacre, finds the dragon dying, and the princess's handmaid Frida, she like goes through it, and they kind of join together after this terrible grief moment for the princess's handmaid, because her dragon passes away. So they kind of join together and decide that they're gonna make it to the borders of their people and like get back to their people, because Jai is also the heir to his like thing now, because both of his brothers have been killed. Like, it's this whole moment, it's this big thing. It's an adventure. So it's Jai learning how to control his magic now, and like learning how to grow this magic as well and become better at it. And it's them on the run from these people, and then it's them meeting this old like master at this magic, and he like joins them on the road. He's an old warrior. It was so good. I loved this so much. I don't know what I'm gonna rate it. I haven't run it through COPPL yet. I should do that. But this is the first book of 2025, and we started on such a good note, my friends. I loved this. Highly recommend. And I have now been harassing HarperCollins to give me book 2, because book 2 comes out in April. And I'm just like, HarperCollins, you want to give a girl an arc? Like, you want to send me a finished copy? Like, please. I've been harassing them on all the different social medias because I just want it so bad. The other book that I have been reading is The Principle of Moments by Esme Chikiemi Pearson, which is this is the beautiful Illumicrate copy. I am in love with this book too. I'm currently on page 203, just about to start chapter 19. And the other day I just got in the mood, I think it was 2 days ago, I just got in the mood to read this physically because this does not have an audiobook available in Canada for me to listen to. I think the only place it has an audiobook is Australia, which I do not have access to stuff in Australia. So I have been reading this by just my eyeballs, and it is so engaging, which is so good because I struggle a lot with just reading physically, nothing helping me, because I need the audio to help me like double focus sometimes, especially with big thick fantasies or sci-fis or anything, because a lot of it is just like hard to grasp. This book though is so good. Like the writing is so lyrical. It is, honestly, it's a little overboard in a lot of places. Like it's definitely got that debut flavor of like girly is just trying so hard, but it got like, as soon as I get into it, like it takes a couple chapters of me to like, every time I pick it up to read it, to remember that, oh yeah, this is the writing. Like it's very circuitous writing. It's purposefully hiding stuff kind of writing, and you can feel it, and it feels very like, oh, it's mysterious and it's all this stuff is happening and and just like, it is a style. And I'm really, really liking it. Once I like get into it and get past that again and I fall into the story, it's so good. It is reading like a Doctor Who episode, and I am thriving because it just, it makes me so happy. Going in knowing that it was compared to a Doctor Who type of thing, I was like, okay, so it's gonna have like the time traveler and the companion, which it does. But from my knowledge of Doctor Who, which I've watched, I think like 1 or 2 seasons of Doctor Who, I need to get back to it. I really enjoy that show. To me, like the companion is always the weaker one because she's the woman, right? I have not yet gotten to Donna's season, so I don't know about Donna, but like as of right now, I think 9. Was I watching 9? The first Doctor of like the new episode, the new series, you know what I mean? With Rose. I met Rose. That's the companion. But like, she's not weak, but like, it's always the Doctor having to come in and save the day. You know, like the Doctor just knows all the solving, all that kind of stuff. This is different. Asha is our companion, if you will. She is this woman who, or I guess she's a young lady. She's 18. She is living in the year 6066, and she is living with her mom, and she gets approached right at the beginning of this by this sentinel type of being who basically tells her that like she has to find her sister that she had no idea about, no idea she had a sister, and like save her. Otherwise, this person is going to kill her mom. And so Asha is like, she has been planning from day one on like how to escape this planet. That is her thing. She never realized that she would actually have to do that. She does. She ends up having to do that. Ends up having to try and escape. And she meets Obi, who is our time traveler. And Obi, all he wants is to be with the love of his life, who is the King of England. Who is going to be the King of England. He's like the Mad King's son. He's George. His name is Augustus, Augustine. He's the king that came before Queen Victoria. So that King George, we meet him as he's like a 22-year-old or whatever, and he's getting ready to ascend to the throne. Obi is in love with George, and he just wants to do this. And Obi is also very sick. He has this illness that the time travelers in this world get. So every time he jumps times, he can lose something of himself. So he's lost an arm, he's lost an eye, he's lost a toe. Like part of him is like metal now because of this. At the end of this, he's like, I'm done jumping. I'm done. I'm just going to stay here in this time. But then he gets yanked through time to Asha's time, like against his will, and he does not lose anything. And he's like, what? Like, I didn't willingly jump. I just wanted to be with my man. Why am I here? And so we are like, it's just so fascinating. And it's this like, I don't know what the point of this is yet, but I have a feeling it's like they're going to go save this woman, and there's also other shit happening. Like there's a prophecy going on that deals with these 2 kids. Like, love prophecies. I love this. I have so many issues with time travel books. I don't like time as a device, but this book is doing it really, really well because it's doing it like a Doctor Who episode. And that to me makes sense. I don't know what it is. Anyways, thriving, loving this. I have other books on the go. I'm still reading The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. I haven't picked it up since like 2024, but I've like, this is what I've been reading. And this is great because both of these books are written by people of color. We love that. Taran Matharu is also, he's got another series out there, but like he is an American writer, which is cool. But then I think Esme Jakiyemi Pearson. I believe she's either from New Zealand or maybe the UK. I don't remember where she's from. She's not from North America. That's all I know. She's got an accent and stuff like that. And she's also Black. So love that. Love this so much. And it's also queer as well because Obi is queer. Love that. He's gay. I love that so much. I'm thriving. Really, the reading this year so far has been very good. Going forward, I would like to continue reading Mad Ship, of course, and finishing that one and continuing that series. I did get a whole bunch of books. I finally got my stack of books from Book Outlet and that kind of a thing, but I'm still waiting for one more book order, which I think is coming in tomorrow, which has 2 more books in it, and both of them are by Canadian authors, and I would like to read them as well this month, potentially. But I have so many options now, and I yesterday went to the bookstore with my friend Sophia. You would have seen like our come shopping with me video already, where I picked up exclusively series sequels. So I have now the last book in the Iron Widow duology. I have the second book in the These Burning Stars trilogy, I do believe. I now have the third book in the Bound Worlds by Megan E. O'Keefe. I think I'm going to try and finish that series this month as well. But my plan, I think, is once I'm done, like the ones that I'm currently reading, I'm going to jump into the Sunbearer Trials and the Celestial Monsters, that duology, and polish that one off at least so that I can start the year off right. Polishing off a duology, we love that. I have so many books that I've now compiled onto my shelves that are more diverse and more like written by people of color and stuff like that, because a lot of my TBR, which is now back up to 160 books, fun fact. A lot of my TBR that I have on my shelves from many years ago and like last year and all that kind of stuff, those are my like books that are written by white people, because when I get books written by BIPOC authors and diverse authors and that kind of stuff, I read those sooner because those are the books that I want to be reading. So a lot of my giant TBR is by white authors because I just haven't read them because I want to read more diversely. But yeah, I have a book waiting for me at the library that I should go get this week. Eitherwise, that's where I'm at with my reading so far. Thriving. Finished one book in 2025 so far. I think I have to read another one to be back on track with my reading goal, but that's okay. It's okay. It's only the 5th. I think we're doing pretty good. That's what's up. That's what's new. I will catch up with you when I have more reading news to tell you, but so far, bangers. Hello, friends! It is officially now January 10th, and I want to pop in with some reading updates because I've officially finished 5 books so far this year. Technically 4 because one of them was like read for the majority of in 2024, but that's fine. Empire of Exiles. I'm talking about Empire of Exiles. Yes, I reread this again. Why? Because I was in the book club for Empire of Exiles. I was on the Writing About Dragons and Shit podcast. You guys know this. But I finished it because the book club is officially finished. So, finish this! Love. Putting that back on my shelves. But last we talked, I had just finished, I think I had just finished Dragon Rider? I'm not entirely sure where we're at with what I was talking to you about, but I know for sure that I have not yet told you about Bright Young Women, this one, Sunbearer Trials, and The Women Could Fly. So, I have finished another 3 books, I believe, since I last talked to you. So I decided to pick up Sunbearer Trials first because I was in the mood. I told myself at the beginning of this month and this video that I was going to finish both The Principal Moments and Mad Ship before diving into anything else. I did not. I was just very in the mood for this. And I'm a mood reader. And honestly, this month I have been just telling myself that I can read whatever the fuck I want, when I want, as long as it's following like the kind of intentions that I've set out for this year. And that's been great so far. The mood reader in me has been mood readering, let me tell you. This was a great reread. I highly, highly recommend this series. I'm so excited to dive into Celestial Monsters, which is going to be the next one that I pick up anyway. So love that. And this is great because this is not only by a Latinx author, it's by a trans author, and also is going to be going towards finishing series. We love that. So love. But yes, this is a book that follows a young trans boy named Teo, who is a jade in this world of gods, semidioses, and mortals. The semidioses, or demigods, are split into golds, jades, and the obsidians are no longer with anything. So it's just basically golds and jades and then all the mortals. Teo is a jade, so he is like one level down. And the Sunbearer Trials are coming up, which are usually these events that happen every so many years. I can't remember the exact time frame, but all of these gold like children, semidioses, enter into this tournament type thing and they battle it out to be the Sunbearer. And the one who wins gets to kill the one who came in last place as a sacrifice to replenish all these soul stones and like keep the evil at bay kind of thing. Like it's this ritualistic type situation and it's part of their culture and all this kind of stuff. Teo is a jade. It is very, very, very rare for jades to be picked for this competition. Teo's picked, and also another jade, Shio, are picked. So it's this really like, I don't know, it's very fun. It's a very fun book, even though it's kind of like, there's this deathly turn to it by the end. Like someone's gonna have to kill somebody else at the end of this. And these trials are so very dangerous and all this kind of stuff. But it's all these like really athletic golds who have been training their whole lives for this. And then these two jades who are just like, we have been training our whole lives to just be regular people. Holy fuck. But it's I loved this. So it was very good. I gave it 4 stars in pre-read. I'm very excited to continue with this duology and finish it up because I feel like the next one's going to be fantastic. I feel it's going to be more like questy, which I love. I love quest books. And I also picked up Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll through my library. I picked this up to bring with me to work when I was going to teach, and I like snuck in a couple times of reading it this past week when a couple of my students weren't there because sick or whatever else they have going on. I read like 1 chapter and I was addicted, pulled in. And the only way I can describe it, like it makes so much sense that it is what it is. It is really heavily inspired by the Ted Bundy serial killer situation. Like it is like someone in the reviews was like, this is so close to a nonfiction that I can't rate this. Like it is very heavily inspired by the Ted Bundy situation with a couple like facts changed. It follows this one girl, our main character, Pamela, as there's like a day, 15,000 some hundred and whatever, when she's like in her 40s after this event happened. And then it follows her as she is like the president of this sorority. And she wakes up and one night after hearing something, and she goes downstairs and is like cleaning up, and she's in the darkness and she sees this man come down the stairs, and she sees him with her own 2 eyes, sees exactly who it is. She doesn't know it's a stranger. She's like, what the fuck? So she goes back upstairs, and then one of her like sisters comes out of the door to go towards the bathroom, and she just sees her from the back of her head, and then the sister turns around and her face has been like bashed in. And so this guy killed 2 of her sisters and mutilated 2 more. So it's this like set off of like, who the fuck did this? Who is this man? And in the meantime, Pamela comes into contact with this other woman named Tina, whose best friend and lover went missing. And she believes that this man also killed her. So it's their like trajectory to figuring out what happened. It's written so interestingly because like, it's not like it's hiding anything from us. It is very much like sometimes you get full sentences that tell you exactly what happened, what you can expect in advance. And it is so brutal. It does hide a little bit of the attack on our main character, Pamela's best friend, Denise, who was murdered by the defendant is what his name is in this entire thing, because he is, like Ted Bundy did, he like represented himself. He, in court of law, he's the defendant. Like for the longest time, it is hidden as to what he did to Denise, because it is like Pamela goes into Denise's room because Denise is not with the rest of the sisters after like she raises the house in an uproar. There's like 40 different women or something. She's like, okay, everyone needs to like fucking somebody call the police, somebody call an ambulance. We have 2 girls who are bleeding out. Like we need, or 3 girls who are bleeding out and all this kind of stuff. And then she goes and she's like, why isn't Denise out here? She goes to check on her and Denise is like sleeping peacefully. And she like checks on Denise and she notices that her underwear is off and she has her covers tucked up around her neck, which she never does. She's like, okay, well, these policemen are coming. I gotta make sure that my best friend is like chill. And she's like talking to Denise and she's like, it's okay, sweetheart. Like I'm gonna do all this kind of stuff. It's the sweetest moment. But at a certain point, when Pamela finds out what happened to Denise, which like she doesn't find out for a long time, she's so confused as to how Denise was the one who died because she looked like she was untouched. And it was this brutal sexual assault rape that caused her internal bleeding and she passed on the way to the hospital. Like it is just this most disgusting crime. So definitely like trigger warnings for this, because holy shit, the crimes in this, insane. I couldn't stop reading this one night, a couple nights ago, and I was up till 4 a.m. because insomnia, but I also just couldn't stop reading this. And I was buzzing at the end of it. And that is something, like I know it's terrible. I know it's so bad. I'm such a true crime girly. I just get so caught up in those stories and the way that they're told, because I know it's terrible, because it's like, it's really bad for the victims and it like exploits the fuck out of them and all this kind of stuff. So when I get to read it, it's nice because it's fictionalized, even though this is very heavily inspired and pulls on the Ted Bundy case. Like, I was buzzing. I was buzzing after, like, this was so good. So good. I gave it 4.5 stars. I thrived this entire time. This was a total random pickup. I didn't intentionally pick this up for any of my goals or anything like that, but because it's written by a white woman, it's all this kind of stuff that doesn't really fit in my genre either. Like, it's not fantasy, but holy shit was it good. Like, I put it up there with Penance. Like, Penance by Eliza Clark and this one gave me the same feeling as I was reading them, although I was a lot angrier by the end of Penance for many reasons. But this one, holy shit, it was good. I need to get myself a physical copy, but yeah, this was something. Holy shit. And this was a total, like, random, like, oh, I'll just like chip away at it when I'm at work kind of read. No, I was obsessed with it and I couldn't put it down. I couldn't put it down. Then last night I decided, I got the inkling to pick up this one, which is on my 25 and 25, which I have now read 2 books off of my 25 and 25 bingo sheet, which we love. The first one was Dragon Rider by Taran Matharu. This one though, bad. I give it 2 stars. I ended up skimming the last half of this because I wanted to DNF it so bad. And it was one of those things where I was like, I don't know. It's the stupidest reason. I was like, I don't know if I can DNF a book on Storygraph for it to still count towards a challenge. So I was like, well, I gotta finish it because to make sure that it counts for my 25 and 25, which is a little ridiculous. But I ended up giving this 2 stars because it was just kind of garbage. And it was boring. It was boring. It felt a little bit like When Women Were Dragons, but the writing style was a lot more loosey-goosey and very stream of consciousness. It just really didn't work for me, which is so sad because like When Women Were Dragons is very like baby's first feminism, and this one is actually like written by a Black woman and like deals with better feminism. That's a weird way to say it. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to love this. I really wanted to get into it, but it just really didn't work for me. But it's done. And now we have 2 books off of the 25 and 25, which is great. I am reading towards finishing a series, which is this one, right? Of course. And then I'm reading off my TBR, which is fantastic. Currently still reading Mad Ship and The Principal Moments by Esme Takimi Pearson. I am loving The Principal Moments. I need to get back to it, but I also need to get back to Mad Ship and actually like dedicate some time to read this and finish this and keep going with this, because of course, it's another series that I really want to tackle this year. Out of the realm of the Elderlings, this is the one that I'm hoping to finish this year. The Live Ship Traders, there's this one and then the 3rd one and then I'm done it. But yeah, this is going to be the first series that I finish this year because Celestial Monsters is the next one that I'm picking up, which is fantastic. But yeah, so we have 2 4.5 stars, 2 rereads with Sunbury Trials and Empire of Exiles, and 2 that were off the 25 and 25. So like we're going pretty good. We're pretty solid. I love this. Intentionally reading forward. So as we go forward, I'm in the mood to read all of these different books on my TBR right now that I'm just like, I just want to gobble them all up. So we're gonna go into Celestial Monsters next. Yay! Oh my god, hey besties! It's been a hot second since I last checked in with you. It is officially January 23rd and I got reading news. Do I remember what I last talked to you about? No. I think it was when I was starting Celestial Monsters and all that. So let me grab the books and let's chat. Okay, so since we last talked, I have finished 3 books and we've got our first 5-star of the year! I'm so excited about it, guys. Woo! First 5-star that's on a reread, I should say, because Empire of Exiles was the first 5-star, but that's because that was a reread. Of course. Favorite book, potentially of all time. Need to reread Gideon, because that one's also my favorite book of all time. But okay, so since we last talked, I did officially finish Celestial Monsters by Aiden Thomas and have wrapped up this duology. So not only have I finished my very first series of the year, we've checked off one of the 10 that I wanted to read this year. I'm so happy about it. We are continuing to absolutely crush our 25 and 25 bingo board. Look at that. 4 books. I love that for me. Guys, we've crushed 4 on this 25 and 25. We've already done better than last year's. Oh my god. And it's January 23rd. We love it. I have been doing that like Storygraph pages challenge. So I have been reading every day of the month so far. I am thriving, and I think that's one of the best ways for me to just keep up my reading and make sure that I'm reading something every day, which is just phenomenal. But yes, goals. crushed. We've crossed off more of the 25 and 25. We absolutely love that. We've finished the first series. Absolutely amazing. We're reading Diverse because this is written by a Latinx author, a trans author as well. I'm so excited about this. And this was great. I do have some issues with the way this ended with one of the characters, namely Aurelio, because there's a lot of issues that are brought up in Aurelio's storyline with a number of different things, namely his family, and they are just never resolved by the end of this. And that kind of bothers me a little bit because there is this moment at the end of this book. Spoilers, it's like very gentle spoilers. I'm gonna try to do this in a way that's not actually spoiling anything. But like, if you don't want to know anything about this, mute me until this book switches hands. I'll switch hands. That's what I'll do. So there's this moment at the end of this book, which I absolutely love, which was this big moment where all the kids are working together and they've kind of let their issues lie to the side. And then all of their parents are coming in and they have this moment. It's just so much heart and warmth in it. And it's all these parents like losing connection with their kids because of different reasons. And like, it's this big emotional beat and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, this would have been, I think, even better if we had a wrap-up moment with Aurelio and his mother, because his mother is fucking trash to him and to Auristela as well. Like to me, like the whole time I was reading that scene, I was like, what about Aurelio? Because he's always been looked down upon by his mom. He's never been good enough for his mom. Like there needs to be something there for us to wrap up that particular story beat, because it has been a big story beat this entire novel, with Aurelio's like fact that he has lost his other half with Auristela being gone, and the fact that his mother is like, here, have this like circlet thing that's going to make your powers better because we know you're never going to match Auristela, and he's been trying to figure out how to make this thing work the whole book. And it's this whole like personal moment with Aurelio, and it never comes to fruition, which I'm really kind of pissed off about. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. I think that the quest aspect of it, which was different than the trials aspect of the first book, definitely really worked for this. I love when a duology or a trilogy in a fantasy world dabbles in different like structural types of novels. Like we have the hero's journey, we have the quest novel, we have the trials, we have, there's like all these like not stereotypical, but all of these like categories you can fit books into, and like the way that they're structured, that kind of story that it's telling. And I really enjoy when series kind of dabble in multiple different things. Not necessarily that they're dabbling in different genres, but I've seen that happen too, where authors will release one that's in like just a typical fantasy, and then the next one will be a little bit more horror fantasy, like it leans a little darker. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy it when authors kind of mix that together. But yeah, this one ended up being 4 stars. I don't know if I said that earlier, but I really enjoyed this. I think this whole duology is just lovely. As someone who doesn't read a lot of YA fantasy anymore because I just don't like it, as a blanket statement, I just don't enjoy it anymore. There are some books that do hit, and these books I think do really hit. And I think for someone who loves YA fantasy, or for someone who is trying to get into fantasy, or for someone who has a younger reader in their life who's looking for a really good fantasy that has no spice in it, just a little bit of kissing and yearning, which we love, pick this up. There is such a delight at the heart of Aiden Thomas's writing, and it comes out in these books. I love it so deeply. I really like, even though it's a 4-star book for me, like I had a great time reading this. So love. After that, I have also been making my way through Principal Moments like the entire month, but that's the most recent book that I finished, so we'll talk about that in a second. But I picked up one of my pre-orders, the very first pre-order of the year, and then I finished it that same day, which is Watermoon by Samantha Soto Yambao, because I have been looking forward to this for so long. Since I found it when I was doing my like pre-order with me video, book by books with me, planning, releases video last year. I can't remember the exact title of it, but ever since I was doing that video, I have been so anxious to get this in my hands, and I've just been seeing more and more people on the internet talk about this book and how much they enjoy it and how much it hits like a Studio Ghibli movie. And oh my god, does it hit like a Studio Ghibli movie, okay? It has everything you could want, from the amount of whimsy, from the amount of magical realism, and also the elements of horror that are brought in. Because listen, you've all watched, if you haven't watched Spirited Away, I've seen it once, but that beginning pig scene is horrifying. And there's lots of little elements of horror in a Studio Ghibli movie. And I think that's what really makes those movies special, because they bring in these elements of something that shouldn't necessarily or wouldn't necessarily be considered in a fantasy, little lighthearted romance or whatever they end up being, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily seem like it would fit, but it does, because it just adds an edge and it adds something. I don't know exactly what it adds, but if you know what I mean, like I don't know if I'm making any sense at all, but this book was phenomenal. So this is 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It was the perfect amount of whimsy for me. I think that if the end, I understand why the ending was as short and as tied up in a little bow as it was, because I could see this being, I could like literally picture this as a Studio Ghibli movie in my head, like, or a movie in that style, in a Miyazaki style, because that ending makes a lot of sense for that style of movie. But because this is a book, I was wanting a little more. I just wanted something more at the end. I think I wanted just more time. I just wanted more time with it. So just that ending a little bit, because it was just a little bit too rushed for me, which is why it gets 4.5 stars. This is so lovely. So this follows Hana, who is the main character of this book. She owns now, her father just retired. She owns a pawn shop that is unlike any pawn shop that we know. It is a little doorway to another realm type of situation. It is hidden in a ramen shop, and only people who really need it will find this shop. Then they are like convinced by the pawn shop owner to give away this choice that they've made. It's a physical choice that has been like burdening them for so long. They are pawn shop owners of choices, which is kind of interesting. But one day, the first day that Hana is the now new purveyor of this pawn shop, she wakes up to find the pawn shop ransacked and her father missing. And then a man walks into the pawn shop, and for the first time, instead of the pawn shop owner offering help, the patron offers to help. And so they kind of go on this absolutely beautiful, circling, whimsical, world-hopping type of adventure. And it is just, it's whimsical as fuck, and I enjoyed it so much. That's really it. I just had a great time with this. And I think if you really, really, really love a cozier, whimsy to the max type of Studio Ghibli-like movie read, pick this up. You're gonna fucking devour it. It's so good. I have seen a lot of people complaining about how much whimsy there is in here, and those people don't have enough whimsy in their life, because that was the best whimsical book ever. And finally, we're gonna talk about the principal moments, because I finished this last night. There is a line in here, in this moment. I think it's in like chapter 30 or something, like around there. It's between Asha and this other person, and I broke. I was reading the scene, I was going, oh my god, I'm so stressed. Oh my god, I'm so emotional. What the fuck? And then I read this one line, and it was just an instant, like I put the book down and I just sobbed. It was one of those lines. It immediately hit. This book was so good. There are a few things in here that I am gonna be a little nitpicky about, even though I did give this 5 stars. I think the reason why I'm giving this 5 stars is because I buddy read this with Allie. And if I had read this just on my own, it would have gotten a 4.5 star because of these couple things. So there are just a couple little things in here that bother me when it comes to the characterization of our 3 characters in here, because there isn't enough development between them before they are just immediately tied at the hip. There is enough between Asha and Obi because they have a lot of time together in this book. But when it comes to Xavier, there's something about the connection between Asha and Xavier that rubs me just a little bit the wrong way, because it almost feels like they are into each other because of extenuating circumstances. Like, it's not because of the connection they found together. And I know, like, rationally, if you actually were together with these people for as long as they were, and like in tight quarters and going through the near-death experiences that they were going through, they would be very, very, very close. But my issue is the actual demonstration of that on the page. There isn't enough for me in those little moments. I feel like we just didn't quite get enough of the connection of these characters. So that was one thing that really, it was just a tiny little pin in my side. But I still love them together, and I still absolutely ate up their relationship and like the way it was going and the scope of it. There are some bits with them all being together, that I wish were longer, that I wish we got to see. I wish we got to see more of their planning near the end. I wish we got to actually sit in the moments of this, because we would, like, came to a decision at the end of part 3, the 3 of these kids, and they're not kids. They're like young adults. The 3 of these people coming together, like creating this decision. And then we skip forward to like the enacting of the plan. We don't even get to like sit in it and like see their life there a little bit more. And I know this is already like a 500-page book, but I wish I just wish a few things we got to sit in a little bit longer. I don't know. But otherwise, this book is a fucking phenomenal masterpiece because the world building and the pacing and the plotting of this are absolutely pristine, so well done, so complex, and it just blows my mind every time I think about it and I think about what brilliance that Esme J.K. Macpherson has put together in this book. Like, it just floors me when I think about it. And the fact that I read this with Allie, I think, really just cemented that fact, and the fact that I had just so much fun buddy reading it with Allie and like talking about our theories and like reacting to stuff and yelling about it over Instagram together. Like it just made the experience of reading this so much better. Like I was trying to think about how I would have felt reading this on my own. And the fact that I had to read this, the fact that I read this more slowly because there was no audiobook available to me. Because if there was, I would have blown through this probably in 2 sittings. And if I was reading this on my own, I would have tried to blow through it in 2 sittings. Or I would have read it, gotten to a certain point, and then not picked it up for like 3 weeks because I just keep putting it off because there is no audiobook. And that's the kind of reader I am. I need that tandem read to like keep me focused. The fact that I was buddy reading it with Allie and that she kind of set the pace, which was really nice because if I set the pace, we would be fucking probably not finishing this until March. It would have been insane. But the fact that she kept like reading chunk by chunk and like being like, okay, I made it to this point. Okay, I made it to this point. And then I would have to catch up and then we talk about it. I loved that. I loved the fact that I was not made, but the fact that I had to slow down to read this book because it allowed me to not only enjoy it, but then decode it and come up with theories and really sink into this book and think about it. Like it felt kind of like when I was reading books in university, even though in university we'd have to read a book in its entirety before we started discussing it in class together. But that discussion, that like pulling things apart and looking at it in different ways, that was the best part of university to me. And I got that again with buddy reading this with Allie. So I fucking loved this. This was so good. But that is why it gets 5 stars, because otherwise it would get like 4.5 from me. But 5 stars for experience. And because I think I'm not going to be able to stop thinking about this until I get that second book. And we don't even have a date yet for the second book. But I do know that the author herself is writing the second book because I posted a TikTok last night of me freaking the fuck out that I finished this. It was just a picture, and then in the caption I was like, Esme, do you have a date yet? Because I need book 2, please. And she said that she's actively working on book 2, which is great to hear, but there is no date set by the publisher yet. But the fact that like this was so complex, like I get it. Girlie, take your time because there ain't no way you're gonna finish something that complex and well thought out in a short amount of time. So hopefully within the next, I'm feeling probably 2026 for the next one, because if she's still working on it now, I know I watched a vlog of hers because she's also on YouTube of Esme J.K. Macpherson. Esme the author, I think, is her handle name on here. Go check her out. I love her vlogs. I've watched like 3 of them now, but I watched one last night and it was her latest one from December. And she said that she had gotten her edits for book 2, Principal Moments book 2. So she's working on edits. And the way that publishing works is probably going to be 2026 because of the way that like shit's so slow in publishing. But anyways, friends, those are the updates for what I've been reading. I have been thriving. Truly. I have been thriving. I'm continuing to read Mad Ship. I'm halfway through that now. And I also started reading Metal from Heaven by August Clark. I have that on my Kobo. And the second I started reading it, I became so enthralled with it. So I'm intrigued to keep going with that one. I think that one's going to need to be, I feel like it's going to be a Gideon type of read where like the first time I read it, I'm not going to quite get it because so many people are saying that it's confusing, but I'm not really confused. There's like a few things that have to do with the world building that I'm not entirely sold on of like what they are. And it's like knitted into the vernacular of what our narration is saying. And so whenever a sentence like that comes up, I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I can't even parse this with context clues, what this means, what this one sentence means. So there is that. But the story makes sense to me. Like, it's very linear. It's not doing anything weird and the prose is not insane like Tamsin Muir's. So I don't know why people are saying it's too confusing of a read. Granted, I am only like 31% of the way through, so we'll see how that one goes. But anyways, friends, that is the update. It's January 23rd. I'm feeling very solid on all my goals that I've set out for this year. Also, I just finished putting in the principal moments into this into my Copile tracker, and I wanted to see where we're at with all the different things. So, okay, so I've read 1 sci-fi book, 1 magical realism, 1 literary fiction, 1 crime, and then 4 fantasy books. Of course I have, because I've now finished 8 books. That 50 to 50% fantasy to everything else being 12.5% is really funny. But I like that I've read across like a good amount of genres so far. I have not read any novellas yet, which is interesting because I do love novellas, but that's not part of my goals or anything. But okay, so let's take a look at the authors. Okay, I feel so proud of this and I really want to keep this going, but we have so far 75% of the authors that I have read so far this year are BIPOC authors. They're people of color. 75% so far this year, which is amazing, which means 6 out of the 8 books I've read so far this year are by people of color, which is amazing. So we've had a couple Black authors. Taran Matharu is Brazilian and Indian, I do believe. We've had a couple Latinx authors. We've had 1 Latinx author, but I've read 2 books by him, Aiden Thomas. Had a Pinay author with Water Moon, and then 2 Black authors, The Women Could Fly and The Principal Moments. So I'm feeling very good. If I could put in another level of BIPOC author, I would love to do a Indigenous author as well, and a Canadian author specifically, because I have not yet read any Canadian authors. So I could probably do that by reading The Berry Pickers, but I will see what I end up reading next. I do want to finish Mad Ship by Robin Hobb, and then I do want to finish August Clark's The Medal from Heaven. But both of those are white people, unfortunately. But August Clark is trans and non-binary, so still diverse, which we love. What a wrap up. What an update. I feel so productive right now. 8 books down, first 5-star of the year down, and we're doing very good. Like everything has been either 4 stars or higher, except for that one book that was 2 stars. Doing very good. Hello, friends. It is officially February 2nd, my guys. And I believe the last time I talked to you, I had told you about the 8 books that I was getting. I'm looking down because Freya is literally right between my feet. Danger zone. Hi, sweet one. Do you want to come up here? Come on. Come on, sweet one. She decided to nap under the couch today. I have a cat, by the way. I got one. Hi. She's a kitten. She's 5 months old. And I am mentally exhausted all the time, which is great. She's fitting in perfectly fine, but it's me that has to get used to her. Anyways, it is officially February 2nd, and I completely did not read like a single other book than the 8 that I have talked to you about in this video. I have worked towards other books, of course. I did manage to read every single day in January, which is an incredible feat for me anyways, because there were many days, especially recently at the end of January after getting Freya, I was just at my wit's end and could only manage a chapter. So there is that. But we are carrying a couple books into February, namely Medal from Heaven by August Clark. I am 58% of the way through that. And I'm also still reading Mad Ship because I haven't touched it since I last talked about it. I'm still about halfway through. Need to get through that one as well. And of course, February is the My Friends Pick My TBR month. So I have 6, 7, depending on how I feel, books to get through for that TBR. So I have more leeway than I usually do because for the past few My Friends Pick My TBR months, I made a bunch of My Friends Pick books. So I had like 10 or 11 or 12 to read. This time I put it in the group chat once, and then I reached out to Ali and Julie, and then I reached out to Sophia afterwards, and I was just like, whoever answers is gonna pick me a book. I'm not gonna bother them to everyone pick me a book. And I've landed with 6, possibly 7, because Julie gave me 2 options. So we'll see if I end up reading both of those this month. But I love doing those My Friends Pick My TBR. But overall, this month, we decided to, i.e. me, decided to kind of, I'm gonna put you down so I don't keep moving everywhere. I decided to do a very intentional start to my year, which I think I did very, very, very well. I'm going to pull up, forgot I had food. That's probably gonna be cold. Oh well. There's so many things on my computer because I've just been piling them there to make sure that Freya doesn't step on my computer. Starting this whole year, I wanted to do it very intentionally, as I keep saying in this video, just so that I can set out to start this year well. And I'm fairly sure that I did, because I wanted to make sure that I was working towards finishing my goals that I had set out at the end of last year, the beginning of this year. An example of that is like finishing series, actually working towards like reading more diversely, which is always a goal, of course. You want to diversify your shelves. I did also mention that I wanted to read more Canadian authors, which I don't think I read a single Canadian author this month, but that's fine. I will work towards that next month. I also wanted to read more Indigenous authors. Again, I will work towards that more next month. I do have an Indigenous author on that. Actually, I have two Indigenous authors on that TBR, so that's amazing. And I just had other like little things. Like I don't think I mentioned this in this video, but I wanted to read more sci-fi, which I have been doing, you know, with Megan E. O'Keefe's this one, The Bladed Stars. I decided to reread this one, and I read the majority of it in January. So it's not quite it. I finished it yesterday, which is February 1st, but this was a reread that I decided to do right at the end of the month, because instead of reading Middle from Heaven or Mad Ship, I was like, what if I sci-fi? So I did that instead. And I've been really in a sci-fi mood. And I think what's doing that is my return to the love of like sci-fi and Star Wars that I've been finding in myself. Earlier in January, I went to the WSO's, which is our orchestra here in the city, the In Concert series with I believe it was the very final one, the Empire Strikes Back, The Return of the Jedi, the original third movie in the original trilogy, i.e. episode 6 of Star Wars. And after having watched that, I came home that night and I was like, I just want to watch The Phantom Menace properly, because I had up to that point I had only watched half of The Phantom Menace, because I started watching it like really late at night once and I just never continued it. But I rewatched all of The Phantom Menace, and then the next day, I think, or 2 days later, I watched both episodes 2 and 3. So I finished the entire secondary prequel trilogy. Now I've watched all the original 6 Star Wars films, and I've just been in such a sci-fi mood because of that. So I love that for me, and I really hope that that can continue going forward. I got my Cop House spreadsheet up here. I have read like 8 books in January. That was about 3,274 pages. I listened to about 22 and a half hours of audiobooks this year. I have not DNF'd any books, which is great. I've read 1 ebook, 2 physical books alone with no audiobook, and then 5 books in tandem, which is my preferred reading method. I've reread 2 books. Empire of Exiles was finishing that one, and then rereading The Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas. And then 6 books were read for the very first time. I read 3 books that were standalones, and then 5 books that were part of a series. And I also finished a series already this year with the Sunbearer duology by Aidan Thomas. I officially finished that one, which is great. And I have started only 2 series this year. I'm glad that I've only started 2 series. That's crazy. That's crazy. 50% fantasy, of course. I've dabbled in other ones: sci-fi, magical realism, literary fiction, and crime. Everything's been a novel. Nothing's been any novellas yet. I've read 1 book from the library and then 7 that were owned, which is great because it's 7 books off my TBR. Oh, I also wanted to do like an off my TBR number. I think I'm still at like 158 or something. I think at the beginning of this video I said I wanted to be under 150. That's not gonna happen. But the most important thing that I wanted to do this year was to keep that person of color author, Black, Indigenous, person of color author, BIPOC authors, that stat. I wanted to keep that at least 50-50 in my reading months. And this month it was 75% BIPOC authors, which I'm really, really happy about, because I know that's a really good way to start the year, because there are gonna be some months where that number is not 50-50 just because I read a series of an author. If I'm doing another series, like I'm going to be finishing all 3 of Megan O'Keefe's books in February. So that's 3 more books that aren't by a BIPOC author, you know, on that list. But I feel like I'll be able to balance it. It's nice to have started the year with a 75-25 ratio. It's 62% written by women, and then 37% written by a man, which is fun. I'm pretty happy with that. And I think overall we've been killing it. I've really set out this year with my 25 and 25, which is very surprising. I've started really, really strong. I think I have read 4 books off of that so far, which is almost arguably better than I did last year in its entirety. So hopefully I can continue that and keep that going. So I believe actually 2 more for sure are going to be knocked off in February because they were on my Friends Pick My TBR list. But anyways, my friends, this has been an incredibly long vlog, but I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed seeing my reading all in January. We've gotten very good books in January. I think everything that I read except for 1 book was a solid read. Everything was 4 stars or higher, except for that one book that I skim read. I think that was When Women Could Fly, or The Women Could Fly, or whatever. But there is that. What a month. And it lasted for 800 years. One thing that I will say that I'm not really super happy about is that I only read 8 books in January, and my goal is to read 10 books a month to hit my 120 books goal by the end of the year. And the fact that I did not start the year doing that, I was a little worried about, but it should be okay. I will catch up eventually. I'm that kind of a reader where I just bundle read. But anyways, friends, I will leave it here. I've been yapping for too much. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in another video soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.